Welcome to Just Break Up, the podcast about love, heartbreak, and all the relationship advice you don't want to hear. My name is Sierra Mulder.
And I'm Sam Blackwell. And today we're going to answer a letter from somebody who wants to know if she should break up with her boyfriend or if she's just having a flare-up of her avoidant attachment style. Mm-hmm. But before we begin, we just want to give you our Surgeon General's warning, which is that we are not licensed mental health practitioners. And also, we haven't studied attachment styles. I read a book.
Yeah. I was like, well, I kind of did. I listened to those podcasts, but I was like, no,
sure.
That's not we're not accredited in any way. Sam and I are not relationship health professionals. We're just two people with microphones. So that is all to say, please take our advice as you see fit as a supplement to other resources in your life. We are only here to offer our humble musings to hopefully shed some understanding and maybe some laughs about the incredibly rewarding, but mostly confusing experience that is love. All right, today's letter is coming to us from Avoidant Girl, whose pronouns are she, her, who is writing to us from the void. Dear Sam and Sierra, I'm writing to ask for your advice on how to decide if you should break up or not if you have an avoidant attachment style. I'm a 27-year-old woman and my partner is a 33-year-old man. We've been together for 2 years. We met a year after my previous relationship ended, but throughout that year of supposedly being single, my ex and I had been texting every day. I spent that year abroad, and when I came back to my home country, I finally told my ex we needed to stop because I realized I could never move on with anyone else as long as he was still present in my life. 5 days after that, I went on a Tinder date and met my current partner, let's call him Roy. I was quite lonely and sad, looking to fill the void that my ex had left in my life. The first date with Roy was okay. It wasn't mind-blowing, but he was nice enough for me to agree to a second date. We went on more dates after that, and I decided I wanted to pursue him the day he opened up about his previous relationship, about how his ex leaving had hurt him. My heart ached for him when he was telling me this. I could imagine how painful it might have been. About a month after meeting, he asked me to be his girlfriend. I said I wanted more time. He said he was serious about me and didn't want to date anyone else, but was happy to give me more time if that's what I needed. Another month went by, and when he brought the topic up again, I agreed to be exclusive. I didn't feel good about the decision. I felt anxious, trapped, and worried, but I felt I couldn't ask for more time, and I didn't want to lose him. Throughout our relationship, I've had some doubts. In some ways, we really work well together. He says he loves me often. I have the same worldview as him. The sex is great. We have fun together. I love him. I don't doubt his loyalty. We share the same hobbies, and we enjoy the same activities while traveling, and we both want a baby someday. In some aspects, though, we really struggle. He has said he struggles with empathy and with understanding his emotions, that he thinks his capacity to feel emotions is weaker than an average person's. Whenever I bring up an issue such as something he said or did that hurt me, he fails to acknowledge that he's done anything wrong and starts justifying himself that he didn't mean the thing the way I understood it, so I shouldn't be upset. I have repeatedly told him that I believe he didn't mean the thing the way I took it, and that I just want him to say that my reaction is understandable and for him to try to see things from my perspective. He has agreed he will try, but nothing has changed. Also, whenever there's something I want to discuss, he accuses me of bringing it up at the wrong time. Sometimes it's that I shouldn't bring it up before a holiday because it would ruin the holiday. And another time when I brought something up after getting back from a holiday, he said I should have brought it up sooner. It drives me crazy. These kinds of arguments make me think I should just break up with him. Another thing is that he's given me the silent treatment twice when he'd been annoyed with me. And afterwards, he's refused to acknowledge that it was a hurtful thing to do and has said he wouldn't mind if I did that to him. That is a bold fucking statement. Thirdly, he drinks much more than me and my friends. He never hangs out with his friends without drinking, and that bothers me. He hasn't done anything harmful, neither to himself nor to others while drunk, though. I think that I have an avoidant attachment style. I feel I have only been half in throughout this relationship in order to try to minimize a possible heartbreak and to hold on to my own independence. Maybe this is why I'm focusing on the negative aspects of our relationship now. There was a boy in my high school who I had a huge crush on when I was 16. And I often daydream about having a perfect relationship with him. I didn't even know him that well, so I've created a fictional character in my head with his name and face. And I imagine how he would always find me flawless and how we would have to have this perfect relationship and I would never doubt whether we should be together. This, I think, is an avoidant thing to do.
100%. Yes. We'll get into that.
My question is this. Should I break up with my boyfriend or am I just having an avoidant attachment style flare up? I'm certain that if we break up, then a month later, I would be convinced that he is the one and that I've made the biggest mistake of my life and that maybe even I would ask for us to get back together. This is exactly what happened with my last relationship. However, now I'm glad we broke up with my ex. We were a terrible match. I wanted to get off birth control when I turned 28 and try to have a baby. If Roy and I were to try to have a baby, I should be certain about our relationship, and that gives me a lot of anxiety. I am not certain, and 28 is not that far away. I've tried to keep the letter as concise as possible, but so many details felt too important to leave out. Thank you for all the advice you've already given on your podcast, and thank you to all of the letter writers who have shown me that I am not the only one struggling with relationship problems.
Oh, I love that so much.
I love our listeners. They're just the best.
That's so great. That's so cute. All right, Avoidant Girl. Thank you for writing to us and asking this question. You know, I think we don't get the opportunity to talk a lot about avoidant attachment styles from people who have them, right? I think we get a lot of letters from folks who are anxious, and I love that. And keep writing if you have an anxious attachment style. And also, like, you know, folks who have avoidant attachment styles are also experiencing what you're experiencing, friend, which is that you want a deep relationship. You want to feel connected to people and feel seen. And also there's stuff that might be getting in the way of that. And that might be sort of clouding your vision around what a relationship should look like. And I think what is even more on display here too is causing you to doubt your own intuition about whether or not this relationship is working for you, because there's all of these other things that are kind of at play that you're wondering if maybe this person is fine, but I'm the problem, but I'm the one who needs to figure it out, but I'm just running away from somebody who's great and perfect or whatever it might be. So I appreciate you asking us this question. I'm sorry that you're in this place of kind of indecision, and that it feels like the timer is running on you making some sort of choice about whether or not you want to be in this relationship. I think Sierra and I are going to hopefully offer a little bit of our perspective on what's going on here and some ideas about how to move forward in dating and relationships as somebody who may have an avoidant attachment style. But before we get into that, we're going to take a quick break.
All right, my darlings, welcome back, and a special welcome to our Avoidant Girl, which I love. It sounds like a superhero, and I think you are that. I second what Sam said, just want to affirm that I love hearing from our avoidantly attached listeners. I used to really misunderstand you, and I'm confident that I misunderstood you somewhere in this 6.5 years of our podcast. And somewhere in that process, I, quote, I studied. What did you say earlier? That
we've done like no research on any.
Yeah. At some point, I listened to enough podcasts and read enough pages of a book about attachment styles that something really clicked with me. I am actually so grateful that my most recent ex before my spouse, my current relationship, was avoidantly attached. And I'm grateful for that because I can like apply my understanding of avoidant attachments to our relationship, to him, and understand him more, and understand our relationship more, and forgive him more, and have empathy for him more, and understand our listeners more. So what I recognize in your relationship that I also recognized in my ex is that he, just like any person, just like any anxiously attached or avoidantly attached or any person whatsoever, deeply longed for connection and partnership and a love that felt safe and unconditional. And he did a lot of maneuvering to put himself in relationships in which he thought he would receive that love without necessarily being true to himself and not being true to his own desires and needs, because he grew up understanding that love was an act of conformity. Love was an act of like hiding your needs in order to get that sense of belonging, and then those needs would come out in really unhealthy ways, whether that is through infidelity in his case, or lying in his case, or in your case, only being halfway in, accepting a partner that maybe doesn't really fit your bill of what a perfect partner would be, or like what a true partnership would be, but accepting that because you're afraid that belonging won't be found elsewhere, right? True. Yeah. And I guess with that in mind, I just want to start the letter off by saying to our letter writer that, it sounds like you've never been fully in this relationship, also because you've never fully been into your partner. And that's okay. There's nothing like there's nothing like shameful about that. Anybody can do that. Any anxiously attached person, any avoidantly attached, any partner, we can find ourselves in a relationship that like we're not fully in, but we are in because we think it's the right thing to do. And I've also matured enough to say, like, I'm sure your partner is a good person. I'm sure they're a good partner, and I'm sure that the good things about your relationship are really real and true. But I want to validate the fact that you may have a very obvious avoidant attachment style that's manifesting in a number of ways that we recognize. And also, in the same moment, in the same breath, it can be true that this person isn't right for you, and it's not a product of your avoidant attachment style. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that this is like why I think it's so important for us to not pathologize attachment styles and say anxious people are always choosing the wrong people and avoidant people will never be happy in a relationship. Because the reality is that lots of anxiously attached people are in healthy, supportive, nutritious relationships, and lots of folks who are avoidant are also in relationships that are helpful for them, that are working for them, where their partner feels loved and supported, right? Because we have these attachment styles that may influence the way that we approach our relationships with people, that may distract us from what we know to be true, or might get in the way of us asking for the things that we need in the way that we need them. But that doesn't mean that we're not capable of being in relationship in really healthy and sustainable ways, regardless of our attachment styles, right? And so the fact that like you want independence in your relationship is not a bad thing, right? Like it doesn't make you a bad person. It's something to know about yourself, right? If I'm in a relationship, I'm going to want some independence, right? The fact that you are somebody who, like expects a lot from your partner isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's something for you to know about yourself, right? And I think that this is important, or as somebody who may fantasize about this like fake boyfriend whose face you've forgotten, but whose name you remember, and who always tells you look flawless and does everything that you want him to, right? Like that's an important thing to remember, to say like, I can sometimes get distracted by this like ideal of a partner that probably doesn't actually exist. So that's something that I need to know and to hold as I'm getting into a relationship. But it doesn't like condemn you to always being half in relationships and never finding the right person, right? The fact that you have this attachment style doesn't mean that you're not capable of being in a relationship. It just means that it colors your relationships in particular ways that you can be aware of and that you can make decisions in that awareness around. So I say that because like, I want you to know that it sounds like this relationship isn't working for you. And I don't think that it's just because of your avoidant attachment style, right? I think the fantasizing about the like made up person who went to high school with you is an avoidant attachment style for sure. Like that piece of it is like, yeah, that makes 100% sense, that there's like this ideal person that no one will ever live up to and who you will be constantly pursuing, right? And also the idea that you have of like, I'm going to break up with this person and then a month later I'm going to be like, that's my soulmate. I should have never let them go. Absolutely quintessential avoidant attachment style. Like And again, like that doesn't mean anything is wrong. It just means that this is stuff that you can bring into your decision making, knowing that it is true, right? To say like, okay, I know that in a month after I break up with this person, I'm going to want to get back together with him because that's the pattern, right? Doesn't mean that I have to, doesn't mean that that's a problem. I know that this is coming up. So what am I going to do to support myself and remind myself, actually, this isn't the person for me? Or what am I going to do to make sure that I don't have access to them in the way that I might want to, right? Like, again, this self-awareness piece is important because it's not just about saying, I have this thing and therefore I do this. And so I can never do anything about it. It's about saying, I have this thing. And so I'm going to be aware of that thing when I make choices that are in alignment with my values and goals, and recognize that this may be a helpful thing. This attachment style might be helpful in some ways. And it might also be a distraction for me in some ways from what I actually want, which is, I think, in this particular instance, to not be with this person who doesn't seem to be, who you're not fully in relationship with, like you're feeling like halfway in, and who has all of these reasons why they are not a good supportive partner to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just sitting here thinking like, you know, there are ways to navigate interpersonal conflict in relationships that might not look like your partner fully understanding your experience and you understanding theirs. Like there's nuance there. Like it's everything you said makes sense to me. Everything you said is something that I would ask for in my relationships. And also I understand as I get older, I understand there are ways that intimacy and communication and partnership and collaboration in partnerships can exist that are outside the scope of like our partners always understanding and affirming our experience. I need that in my relationship. That's the way I feel safe. That's the way I reciprocate these things. So like your desires to have this in your relationship, A+, need, validate. Nothing wrong with that. But as I get older, I recognize that like, you know, he might just never get it. He might just like never. And maybe that's not the point. It's like, it's not the point to get him to see how you feel. It's to get to the point where you feel safe to feel your feelings in that relationship, whether or not he understands them or not. However, ultimately, from what you have told me and from my own personal needs, like what I would feel in this relationship would not feel like it was the right place for me to grow in, particularly if you want to have a baby. Okay. Like if you are not getting your emotional needs met right now, you will never get them met when you have a baby because it's going to be 50 times harder. If that, right? Like if not more. So I just want to say that. So there, like, if this letter was phrased differently, or if there's like a couple different circumstances, I would talk to you about how, especially as an avoidant attachments person, there will be times in your relationship in which you will tell your truth to your partner and they will not be able to see it. And both of you will have to find peace in that. You'll have to find a resolution despite not seeing eye to eye. And that's okay. Which leads me to my ultimate thing that I want to leave you with is that your fantasy about your high school crush and my experience with my ex makes me think so much about him and how so much of his lying and his infidelity that like hurt me so badly in my relationship came from a place of deep fear and insecurity that if he were to show me his real self and to stand up for his needs, or to say to me, I don't want to be monogamous, or whatever, whatever he was afraid to say to me, that I would reject him and that he would lose that sense of belonging that he found in me. And the truth is, maybe he would have. Like maybe if he said to me, I don't want to be monogamous, I would have been like, okay, bye. I'm looking for a monogamous relationship. But both of you, my ex and you, more than him, you deserve this more than him. Just kidding. But But you're allowed, I just want to give you this abundant permission that you are allowed to show up imperfectly in relationships. And that, number one, people will still love you when you show your true self and your true desires to people. And you and everyone on this planet have a right to rejection. We have a right to our needs and our desires. And so the vulnerable thing about being true to ourselves is that we are not for everyone. Our desires are not for everyone. Like Sam said so beautifully, it is totally perfectly okay for you to want independence in a relationship. That doesn't mean you're halfway in and halfway out. You can tell your partner, I need independence in my relationship. Do you know what I mean? Like that is something you can bring to the table, and there will be partners out there that can receive that and grow with you and reciprocate it. You know what I mean? When I think about my ex, I think about how I hope he has found in his new relationships somebody that he can be authentically himself with, because he didn't feel like that with me for whatever reason, whatever about me or whatever about his wounds, you know, or his attachment style. He felt like he had to pretend to be all in when he wasn't. You know what I mean? And so I want to say that to you, is that like this fantasy that you're having is a fantasy that requires no vulnerability. And there's no relationship out there that doesn't require you to be vulnerable to other people's feelings and other people's experiences, you know?
That you are going to have not necessarily miscommunications, but there's going to be a difference in your experience and your partner's experience, right? Like that is going to happen 100% of the time, no matter how compatible you are. And I think Sierra's right that this like fantasy of, when I find the right person, it will be easy to be vulnerable and I won't have to try, is not true. It's impossible. But I think that's where avoidantly attached people kind of get focused, is that like, yeah, it shouldn't have to be like tons and tons of work, but always in a relationship that's going to exist. And folks who are avoidantly attached get fixated on this idea that there's someone out there where I'm not going to have these miscommunications, or I'm going to feel 100% affirmed and loved in exactly the way that I want to, right? And that is never going to happen. So they're always on the lookout for that. And also at the same time, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't be aware of ways in which their relationship isn't actually working and affirming them. You know, like you can break up with somebody because they're not the right person for you, even if you have an avoidant attachment style. And it seems like that's what's in this particular moment happening for you. So lots of complications here, right? Like it's nuanced. There's layers to it. And we hope that this has been at least partially clear for you to help sort of peel back some of those layers and to sit in the complicated nuance of attachment styles and relationships, because it's never as simple as just what the book tells you, right? Or what your idea of relationships should look like. But part of the work for everyone, regardless of attachment style, is recognizing and growing our level of comfort and fluency in the ambiguity of it, in all of the complicated messiness of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's beautiful. I have so much love and empathy for my ex. I want him to feel safe to be himself. And I want that for you as well, even more than for him. I mean, like, fuck him. Just kidding.
I have so much empathy for him, but also fuck him.
What? I'm just kidding. Just doing the shtick. All right. We love you to our letter writer. We love you exactly as you are and as you become to be. Thank you so much for writing and trusting us with this letter.
We love you.
All right. It is Friday, and that blings us to the first blind date of 2025. Every week we like to shout out something that we love, that we want to set you up with. And this week we are sending you home with
a book called Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. It was one of the sort of most talked about books of last year. And I read it in the fall of 2024. It's a book by a poet who, this is his first novel, and it follows the story of a man named Cyrus who was born in Iran but moved to the United States as a young person, whose mother was killed in a sort of plane crash. And he's sort of seeking meaning to life and death, I guess is how I would describe it. It's super poetic because obviously, he is a poet, but he goes on this adventure trying to write a book about martyrs, people who die for some sort of purpose. And that leads him to a relationship with an artist who has terminal cancer and is dying publicly in an art exhibit. And it's just a very interesting book. It's not like anything that I have read before. It is really emotional. It's about queer characters as well, which is really delightful. And it's really a book about finding your own sense of identity in a world that doesn't like or appreciate you. And after dealing with a lot of grief and hardship in sometimes beautiful, but often just like very prosaic ways. So you should check it out. I really liked it. It is called Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. You can get it wherever you get your books.
Awesome.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you would like more content from us, or if you would like office hours, access to our monthly office hours, you can support us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month, you'll get additional bonus weekly episodes, as well as those office hours, which is when we hop on Zoom with anyone who wants to join us and we answer questions in real time. You can go to patreon.com/justbreakuppod to get access to those things.
You can slide into our DMs, send us your favorite relationship memes, but most importantly, you can submit your questions about all matters of the heart at justbreakuppod.com.
Please remember to like, follow, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review. This literally keeps our mics on and helps us reach more brokenhearted souls who need 2 random strangers giving them relationship advice.
And remember, we are all just trying to get our needs met in the ways that we were taught or given or inherited as young people. And we can see some humanity in that, some connection in that, is that we're all seeking some sort of safety or belonging or security within ourselves and other people. And at the same time, we are always capable, like in the metaphor of the new year, we are always capable of starting something new, of trying something differently, of maneuvering through those desires and those triggers and those patterns in a different way. And if all else fails,
just break up.